Darussalam is located on the island of Borneo's northern coast, bordering the South China Sea and flanked by East Malaysia. Since its discovery in 1929, oil and gas have been the backbone of the country's economy. The culture of the nation is firmly based in its Malay heritage. Language, architecture, ceremonies, and conventions all reflect this. Brunei's government national vision, Wawasan 2035, emphasizes the country's commitment to long-term development and stable macroeconomics. Wawasan 2035 encourages investment in downstream businesses as well as economic clusters other than the oil and gas industry. Education, political stability and security, institutional development, local economic growth, infrastructure, social security and the environment are among the 13 initiatives included.
In the 6th century, when it was a part of the Srivijaya Empire, a maritime trading monarchy located in Sumatra, Brunei had its earliest recorded settlement. During this time, Chinese and Indian traders had tremendous impact on Brunei. Islam arrivals. Indian and Arab traders brought Islam to Brunei in the 14th century, where it gradually took hold as the majority religion. The adoption of Islam transformed Brunei into an Islamic sultanate and had an impact on its law, culture, and traditions. During World War II, from 1914 until 1945, Brunei was under Japanese occupation. Brunei had gained its independence in 1945. Following the war, Brunei saw a rise in nationalism that prompted the creation of political organizations that backed independence. Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah served as Brunei's first prime minister and later as sultan after this country's full independence from the United Kingdom was attained in 1948. Next is political systems. Brunei's government is an absolute monarchy. The Sultan of Brunei, also known as the Nation of Brunei, the Board of Peace, is the head of a state, the head of government, and the supreme authority in the nation. He has absolute power. Since 1967, Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah has served as the Sultan of Brunei. Next point is economic. The exploitation of Brunei's enormous deposits of natural gas and petroleum is the country's primary source of income. The state has one of the greatest per capita incomes in Asia thanks to oil and gas revenues, but they have also left the nation dependent on a single item that is prone to market volatility. Additionally, almost all of Brunei's manufactured items and the majority of its foods must be imported. Since the late 20th century, the government has worked to diversify the economy by fostering various industries such as agriculture, fisheries, tourism, and financial services in an effort to ensure the nation's economic stability.
The social life in Brunei is heavily influenced by the country's cultural and religious heritage. Islam is the dominant religion in Brunei and it plays a significant role in both social and legal aspects of life. Most Bruneians are Muslim and the country follows a conservative interpretation of Islam. Social activities in Brunei revolve around family and community. Families are considered to be the cornerstone of Bruneians society, and social gatherings are often centered around family events such as weddings, birthday, and religious festivals. Despite being a small country, Brunei has a rich cultural heritage which is reflected in its social life. Traditional dances, music, and clothing are still a part of Bruneian culture, and visitors can often witness these traditions at cultural events and festivals. Where social life in Brunei is generally conservative, there are some modern influences that have started to make their way into the country. For example, cafes, cinemas, and shopping malls can be found in urban areas, providing younger generation with more modern entertainment options. Meanwhile, for the cultural aspect of Brunei, the first one is traditional clothing, which is the traditional costume for Bruneians is the baju Melayu, a loose-fitting and pants made of light-colored fabric for men, and a traditional dress known as the baju kurung for women. People in Brunei also will wear traditional clothes during important occasions and celebrations. Secondly, religion. Brunei is a Muslim-dominated country, and the religions play a significant role in the daily life of the people. Prayers are offered 5 times a day, and Islamic festivals like Hari Raya Aidilfitri and Hari Raya Aidil-Adha are celebrated with great enthusiasm. Thirdly, food. Brunei's cuisine is unique and offers a combination of Malays, Chinese, and Indian flavors of that. The famous dishes include ayam buyat, soto Brunei, nasi kato, and amber. For the fourth, language. Malay is the official language of Brunei, but many other languages such as English, Chinese, and Tagalog are also widely spoken. And lastly, sport and recreational activities. The traditional sports of Brunei are sepak takraw, silat and bola Brunei.
Domestic means political activities, event and situation happen or exist within one particular country, while issue means important subject that people are arguing about or discussing. In this informative video, the domestic issues that I will be talking about is politics, security, social and economic. In politics, Brunei is an absolute monarchy in which the Sultan exercises executive power. There are no elected representatives at the national level. Freedoms of the press and assembly are significantly restricted. Online speech is monitored by the authorities but is lively nevertheless. There are no national level election in which opposition forces could gain power. Since the National Solidarity Party was deregistered without explanation in 2007, the NDP has been Brunei's sole legal political party. It has no formal political role, few activities in practice and a small membership, and is unable to challenge the Sultan power in any meaningful way. With the dominance of the Sultan and lack of election, residents have few avenues for genuine and autonomous political participation. However, people have some very limited ability to challenge unpopular policy through the organization of social movements. Members of ethnic, religious and other minority groups have few opportunities for political participation even on a local level. Village council candidates must be Muslim and minister and deputy minister must be Muslim and Malay unless the Sultan grants an exception. Since many ethnic Chinese in Brunei remain permanent residents and not citizens, they are further excluded from the limited participation in politics available. Insecurity through the tiny old-rich sultanate is sometimes overlooked within Southeast Asia. It does exercise its own influence in various ways with respect to regional security developments, be it in its role as a quiet claimant in the South China Sea dispute or the advancing of functional defense priorities such as counterterrorism and military confidence building within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is ASEAN, the Wawasan 2035 vision and the three strategic defense pillars of deterrence and response, defense diplomacy and holistic defense, or the 7 priority areas reflected in the acronym IKWAN Damai. Yet there are also notable changes observed at the outset and throughout the document, including the focus on hybrid or grey zone threats, joint operation and self-reliance, as well as call for reform components such as training and education, personnel management and force structure. That overall sense of having to adapt to an increasingly challenging security landscape was also captured in official characterization of the white paper launch, including by the Defense Ministry. In terms of social, to the outside world, the tiny Southeastern Asian monarchy of Brunei looks like a Shangri-La. The country, with a population of less than 500,000, has one of the highest level of GDP per capita in the world. The benevolent Sultan, once the richest man in the world, has ensured free education and medical care and highly subsidized food and housing for his subjects. Most Bruneians are employed by the government, which assure them a considerable degree of economic stability. Given this background, a rise in mental illness, including in the suicide rate, might be the last thing an observer will expect. On World Mental Health Day 2020, Brunei's health minister disclosed that 7,000 Bruneians, or 1.5% of the total population, are undergoing treatment for mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, and social isolation. Of this, the minister stated that 4,000 people were being treated for psychotic disorder such as schizophrenia, a severe mental disorder with hallucination and disorganized thinking that can impair patient's ability to function. The remaining 3,000 suffered from mood disorder, including depression and bipolar disorder. The most worrying aspect of mental illness in Brunei is that in the past 4 years, the suicide rate has more than doubled. Last but not least, the domestic issue of economics is that government subsidy is also responsible for rates of suicide. When you are assured of certain things, then only you start looking for other things. This has made society very materialistic and demanding. Bruneians have always enjoyed a very high standard of living, with the average household having at least 3 cars due to the low cost of petrol and diesel. Financial literacy can play an important role in the curbing rise in suicide and mental illness. Sadly, in Brunei, people have come to terms with living with debt. It become a way of life, which is evident from payday traffic jams and seeing people queuing up at the banks to pay loans. Too much emphasis on the hydrocarbon sector has not only shrunk the job market, also made the different cluster of economy stagnant, dismissing the myth that the Bruneians are living beyond their means because they believe that in the end the Sultan will rescue them. People are ready to work but are unable to find meaningful employment, as it's too presumptive to say that all Bruneians think they'll be rescued from the economic distress either by God or the king. That thinking applies more to the older generation than the young. The notion that Brunei is a utopia that is shielded from the turbulent economic and natural forces no longer exists.
In conclusion, Brunei possesses a vibrant history starting as a trading center in the 7th century and evolving into an influential Islamic sultanate. Colonization by European powers in the 19th century led to British protectorate status, granting Brunei limited autonomy. The country achieved full independence in 1984, with Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah leading the way. Brunei's wealth from oil and gas reserve has propelled its developments, allowing investments in various sectors. Today, Brunei is a constitutional sultanate blending Islamic traditions with modern governance, focusing on economic growth while preserving its cultural heritage. Okay, that's all from us. Thank you.